CWL World Championships right around the corner. We've got all 8 pools ready to reveal for you folks, as well as just going over the format of what the bracket looks like as a whole. It's going to be interesting because a lot of CWL teams have a number of storylines to build, but also beyond that, a lot of these open bracket teams have been pooled into their teams that knock them out. So a lot of things on the line. Let's go ahead and break it down. What's up, COD fans? Sorry that I've missed you guys over the last couple of days, weeks. It's been a little bit chaotic trying to get all these graphics together. I'm also setting up interviews for each of the individual teams. This video in specific will just be going over every single pool at a glance, who I think will be the top 2, who I think will be the bottom 2, and then beyond that, obviously, you know, some extra storylines that'll be in the mix. If you want to see more individual breakdowns in the pools, I will be doing 32 individual videos for every single team. Most of them will be coming with an interview from one of the players, so you'll kind of get a little bit of a thought about what they think about their pools, and then again my individual take on each individual team as far as how they will fare in their pool. So there will be no pool A video or pool B video. It's going to be 32 individual team videos to give you all the lowdown of every single member of that squad. Let's go ahead and talk about the format first. 32 teams, 16 from the CWL, 16 from the open bracket make the 32. 4 teams in 8 different pools, and here's the big catch: the top 2 move on. Nothing for third, nothing for fourth. If you finish 4th in the pool, you finish with the top 32 next to your name. Thanks for playing. If you finish 3rd in your pool, you finish with the top 24 next to your name. Thanks for playing. No chance to get to the playoff bracket, so only the top 2 teams will make it to the playoff bracket. Let's go ahead and break things down, though, as far as how we had them. Starting in Pool A, this was the draw that we had. It'll be eUnited, the number 1 seed from Miami, going up against Elevate, the other CWL team, and then the boys who won the open bracket, and RBL, formerly known as Firesticks Gaming, will be the last team in this pool. And this might seem a little strange that the winner from the CWL and the winner from the open bracket are in the same pool together, but the way this works is the number 1, the number 16, the number 17, and then one of the other top 16 finishers, technically the 32 spot, is how this one would look as far as how the draft went for this. So for Pool A, eUnited, Elevate, these 2 squads are 1-1 against one another. Both of them went Game 5. So you might be thinking, easy peasy, no problems for eUnited. There is some consideration here. The other side of the story is the boys in RBL Esports also played up against each other in the winner's bracket in the Game Fuel open bracket. That was a 3-1 that favored the boys. Now, generally speaking, you can't be feeling too good about RBL and their history, but also their chances here. For me, this pool will come down solely to what happens between the boys and Elevate, and that head-to-head might be what definitively tells us who will be the number 2 team here. I think eUnited walks away with a 3-0 without too much of a problem, but you have to be very worried about the boys and Elevate when it comes down to the potential to surprise, because there is a small potential there. The biggest thing for me is who wins, Elevate or the boys. That'll determine likely who gets into the pools. For Elevate, this is a squad that has not looked super great in their hard point, but has done very well in their search and destroy. It just, for me, comes down to who wins the respawn. Personally, I'm giving a little bit of favor towards the side of the boys, just simply because of the experience that's there. But you also have to keep in mind that this is an Elevate team that is filled with players that have a very extensive amount of CWL experience. For me, it comes down to if Whalers and Lacefield perform on the main stage, Elevate should get through. If they don't perform, I would see the 5-man force of the boys being able to potentially get all the way through their pool. So for me, prediction-wise, I've got eUnited, and I'm going to throw a little bit of favor over to the boys as far as who walks out of this pool. RBL, sorry, I think you're going to probably finish here at a top 32 just because, again, I don't see them winning a game in that setup. Going into Pool B, we've got another big setup here, as it'll be Gen.G and Enigma 6 from the CWL, Team War and Fuego from the Game Fuel open bracket, and this is going to be a very interesting pool as well. Gen.G is 2-0 versus Enigma 6 with a 6-3 map win ratio. It was a Game 5, though, at Anaheim that allowed Gen.G to move through the winner's bracket a little bit further and kept Enigma 6 from making their way into what would have been a free top 4 position. It was a very good set, so definitely keep your eye on this Enigma 6 squad to potentially make some moves. Team War and Fuego did not get a chance to play up against another, and for the Game Fuel bracket side of things, this Fuego team I think is actually the worst out of the teams that I've saw play at Miami. This Team War squad, obviously they were able to take things to the grand finals of the open field bracket to 2 best of 5s before they would eventually fall to the boys, but a very close 10 games that were played there, so definitely a lot of potential. Sorry, though, I'm going to go ahead and say the favor here goes to Gen.G and Enigma 6 as far as the top 2 placements would go. Enigma 6, a lot of you might be a little concerned about them. They only hold a -12 differential in the hardpoint and are actually doing a lot better in their search and destroy since their roster changes. So I think the C6 team is going to be very, very good. And again, the caliber of opponent in Team War versus Enigma 6, you give the favor to the team that's been playing in the CWL for longer. Gen.G has looked very, very good. Even though there's been questions for Nagafin, I still think that this team probably walks away 3-0. So I've got Fuego finishing last, Team War in third, Enigma 6 in second, and Gen.G in first. Going over to Pool C, the only real head-to-head matchup we have to worry about here is actually the one game that was played between FaZe Clan and Units, as those will be the 2 CWL squads. They'll also be dealing with Mazer Gaming and Team Divinely. I put an asterisk next to their name because we are anticipating them announcing a new organization within the next few days. They've kind of posted, actually Team Divinely have already posted on their Twitter that we've been picked up by another organization. So I'm not sure what it is yet. I wanted to get these graphics out for you, so we'll let them be labeled as such. FaZe Clan and Units have played up against each other a single time, where Units won the matchup in Game 5 just before Miami. Now, FaZe Clan looked like they came out pretty flat in that series. You don't anticipate that happening again. Just a brief look at what this pool's strengths are. FaZe is actually a very, very good hardpoint team. They're actually one of the best since the roster period changes. The only team that's really surpassed them have been Luminosity, 100 Thieves, and Midnight have been the only teams holding a better win-loss and point differential in the hardpoint. Units have also been doing relatively well. They actually hold a positive differential in the hardpoint, but they've looked very, very shaky in search and destroy. If you're one of these Game Fuel open bracket teams, you're better hoping that you win Game 2 because the search is not very good between both of these squads. FaZe Clan obviously better than Units in the search department, but not an incredible search team. So if you're Mazer Gaming and if you're Divinely, you need to rely on the fact that you're going to be getting some significant work done when it comes to your search and destroy, because other than that, the respawn is going to be a very, very difficult road to take, both hardpoint and control alike. Personally, I was surprised that Team Divinely made it as far as they did in the Game Fuel open bracket. I still think that they're the worst team in this pool. I've got them finishing 4th as they will come through. Mazer Gaming, I think this is a very strong roster. I'm just worried about how far they're going to be able to go and how much team coordination they've been able to get in. It kind of felt like watching Mazer play. Again, they only played for 3 days before they got to Miami. They were playing like a bunch of pickup players. A lot of missed rotations, a lot of missed calls. That has to change because this Units team is getting a lot better. They have a lot of experience with the former Team War squad in there. And then, of course, FaZe Clan, no introduction needed. For me, it just comes down to what happens between Units and Mazer. I think, though, that Mazer has the chance to beat a squad like Units and come out as the number 2 team here. So I've got Divinely in 4th, Units in 3rd, and Mazer in 2nd, followed up with FaZe, obviously, up top in the first spot. Going to Pool D. This one's going to be really, really interesting, I think, because, again, a lot of animosity between a lot of these teams. Reciprocity is 3-0 as the favorites against the number 2 team in this pool of Team Envy in the CWL, a 9-4 map win-loss ratio, and this Team Envy squad has looked awful for quite some time. Now, we will get a chance to talk to Silly from Team Envy, and he's going to be able to give some insight as far as what's been going on, what's been going wrong, and what they're hoping will go right when it comes to finals. The Sage team, though, is relatively scary. They're not as scary, I think, as the Mazer squad was that we previously talked about, but there's a lot of experience with these players with one another on this Sage squad. A number of notable players that typically get very far in every kind of OLT that they play in. For Legend status, Hancho, Fancho, Ryza, Phenom, Pure, and Fatal. My expectations are not super high for this squad to do really any work here whatsoever. Legend and Sage did play against each other in the losers bracket where Sage sent them home at a 3-1 map win-loss ratio. So there is that to consider, but the expectations I think are pretty linear here. Again, I think it just comes down to what happens between Team Envy and Sage. Experience-wise alone, you have to be favoring Team Envy, but this is a squad that's minus 46.29 differential in the scores of their hardpoint. That is the second worst, next to only Elevate since the roster change period has occurred. This team is also negative in their search and destroy, but have closed the gap in their control. I don't know. This is going to be tough. For me, it's going to come down to how much Envy have improved, because this roster should not be doing as poorly as they did at Miami. They still did not have a very great performance, and personally, I think this is going to be a very interesting pool simply because this Team Envy squad very well could lose a game to Legend status. I don't know. Or they very well could beat Reciprocity and come out on top. Personally, though, I'm going to go with Reciprocity as my number 1 seed here. And then again, I think I'm actually going to favor that of Team Envy against Sage. I know that the Sage team has a lot of experience, but personally, I think that this Team Envy squad is going to figure things out and come back looking strong throughout the pool. So I've got Reciprocity in first, Envy in second, Sage for the third spot, and Legend status in the fourth. I know so far this has been very parallel from left to right, but I think we're going to start seeing some shakeups, mostly in this pool coming up, as we'll go to Pool E. Again, UIU is here, but Luminosity is the favorites, and Singularity coming out of the top 6 performance at the open bracket will be met with Vanity. Again, that was the squad known as Excalibur. They've been picked up by Vanity, and they will be performing. This was the team that beat Mindfreak early on and was able to find their way through a number of Game 5s coming through. So this Pool E, LG is only 1-2 in sets versus UIU, 5-8 in the maps, and most recently it was a Game 5 at Anaheim, where LG was having to beat them just to continue their losers bracket run. Now, this LG team is so much better than this UIU team when it comes down to post-Roster Mania changes. In fact, after Roster Mania happened, the most recent one, LG is the best team out there. They hold a plus 33 differential in their hardpoint. They also hold a plus differential in their search and destroy, as well as in their control. UIU, on the other foot, is the worst team out there when it comes to hardpoint in specific. They almost hold a minus 70 differential between the scores that they're able to provide for hardpoint. They've been looking better in search and destroy, but they're also one of the worst control teams in the CWL. A lot of things I think would have to go right for UIU to get their way out of the pools, just because I don't think they're a very strong team. Now, Singularity and Vanity have played up against each other once before. It was Singularity who actually sent Vanity to the losers bracket after a 3-1 win. Now, that being said, there's a lot of clout following this Vanity squad. I've had a chance to see these guys play at pretty great length through the CMG scouting grounds, and they've looked a little shaky. I'm a little worried about them coming through a team like Singularity. This is the one pool where I feel like the team in fourth at a top 12 finish could finish top 2 in the pools. However, with Singularity kind of holding a little bit of an advantage over Vanity from before, and UIU looking weak, personally I've got Luminosity taking this pool without much of a problem, but it's going to be down to a dogfight between these other 3 teams. Personally, I can see this Vanity team making it through, but I have a little bit more favor, and if you were to bet on it, I think Singularity is the safest bet here. UIU's looked a little bit all over the place. Yes, they played a touch better at Miami, but only a touch better. And the Singularity team, I think, looked very, very strong. A lot of members are from the PLQ and beyond that they were able to just barely not be able to make the CWL, and then Vanity coming together and making a little bit of a run for themselves. It's going to be interesting, but I think I got Singularity coming through as my number 2 team in that pool, and I wouldn't be surprised if UIU finishes fourth. Going to Pool F, it'll be 100 Thieves, Midnight, Sicario, and Fury, which is Teddy Rexon's squad. This is a very dangerous pool. I don't know how anyone's going to predict this one. 100 Thieves is actually 0-1 versus Midnight. That was a Game 5 just before London, and most notably, that was only one of 3 losses that they had in about a 3-month period, did 100 Thieves. Pool F, though, also has Sicario going right back up against Fury, where they were able to find a 3-0 versus Fury in the winner's bracket. So this is a tough pool for Fury. I actually really like this team a lot, but I just don't know if they're going to have an ability to take down any of the teams above them. 100 Thieves, I think, is probably going to be one of the big favorites going into the champs as a whole. I know they didn't play very well at Miami, but I think Enable kind of cleans things up and it doesn't start as slow. I think they do more work at Miami. So this is a team that I think has a lot of favor. I see them going 3-0 in this pool. This Midnight team is good, though. So is this Sicario team, and so is this Fury squad. Honestly, I could see this one going any way, but I have a lot of favor towards this Midnight team because they have been looking very, very clean lately. So personally, I think Midnight's going to be my number 2, Sicario my number 3, and Fury my number 4. But I could very well see the Sicario team making a surprise and potentially finishing top 2. For me, it just comes down to how much practice is Lenny going to get because everybody else is in the United States. I don't know if Byron has made his way over to the States yet to kind of perform and practice with the squad. This is a team that has a lot of potential. I just worry about their synergy. It really is going to come down to if Midnight shoot themselves in the foot and play cold, because if they do, it'd be dangerous. But this is a Midnight team that's been very, very good in the hard point, and their respawn as a whole has looked very clean. If they can get better at search and destroy, this is a team that very well could very easily finish number 2, if not potentially maybe even surprising 100 Thieves again for a number 1 spot. Going to Pool G. This is not the good pool for Optic. You were hoping they were going to pull Heretics. They pull Evil Geniuses, but they do get Carnage and then Train Hard, which is a team that you're not going to want to sleep on in Pool G. I guess fortunately so for Optic, they are 4-0, 12-1 against Evil Geniuses. The most recent was a 3-1 versus EG in the Anaheim pools, but this Evil Geniuses team has looked better since Anaheim and their most recent roster changes. I actually think this Evil Genius team looks pretty surprising, and I think could be a potential favorite to be a dark horse for this tournament. Carnage, they finished top 8. They didn't have any experience versus Train Hard. Honestly, the Carnage run felt more like a fluke than anything else, but this is a team that packs a lot of punch to it. It just comes down to will they be able to play at the same kind of a pace as a CWL team. Now, Train Hard had an unfortunate exit at top 12, but this is a team that I think if they get some good practice in and just work on their coordination, could be a monster powerhouse to surprise some teams. Yako is an insane SMG player. You've got Natche, Risk, and Zeke to follow up the former Overtime Denial squad, and then Kreza is in the mix, and he brings a lot of experience as well. Do not be surprised to see this Train Hard team maybe even beat a team like Optic if they sleep on them. Personally speaking, I think Optic should get out of pools. I'm not going to say they will because I think there's still a lot of question marks around that Optic team, but they should get out of pools. And honestly, I've got Evil Geniuses also making it out of pools because they're one of my big dark horses going into the tournament, but I would not be surprised to see Train Hard make a run at it. I've got Carnage in 4th place, Train Hard in 3rd, Evil Geniuses in 2nd, and Optic in 1st. To finish things off, Pool H, it'll consist of Splice with the Heretics, and Aspire and Hybrid. Both of those teams from each of their respective places of origin have a lot of history against one another. Splice versus Heretics, 2-2 in the sets, 8-8 in the maps. Very, very close. It was a 3-1 win, though, for Splice most recently at Miami. Aspire was able to actually end Hybrid's tournament by beating them 3-1 in the losers bracket. And again, these are actually two of my bigger surprises when it comes down to where they finish in the open bracket, because I think they have some of the highest potential out of some of the teams that are out there. Aspire with Fastball and Robbie B being that nice little duo have looked very, very good together. Turnip has been one of my standout players in the open bracket as a whole. He's looked really, really good since we first saw him play with the Orlando Reapers way back at Vegas. And then Super and Tish also bring a lot of experience with them. Hybrid, Spoof, Pander, Beezy, okay, CWL caliber players right there. Stamino has been looking very good. My biggest question comes down to Jintrud. Will he be able to step up and be a consistent 5th member? Personally, this pool is up for grabs for all 4 players. All 4 teams, rather. I don't want to leave a prediction on this because this is, I think, the pool of death. Splice has looked very unconvincing with their addition of Huke. Again, I said it before, I'll say it again. Huke was not the solution to all their problems because there are multiple problems for this team. Heretics, they did not look super great when they first made these changes. They looked much better at Miami. They looked very, very scary at Miami. I see them potentially being able to reprise and beat Splice. But then you take a look at Aspire and Hybrid. Anything can happen with these teams. The prediction I'm going to leave here is that Heretics will leave the pool and Aspire will leave the pool. I think that the SMG matchup is not terrible for Aspire versus Splice or even Hybrid versus Splice. I see Splice coming in sleeping a little bit. Of course, there's the drama of them not being at a boot camp as well. We know Heretics can perform after being not really involved with any kind of boot camping. So personally, I think Splice comes out a little bit cold in these pools and gets surprised by Aspire or Hybrid early on in the days, and maybe they don't find much favor to get out of pools. I think it's going to be Heretics and Aspire that leave the pool. I still think that Hybrid has a chance. I don't know. I don't want to put a prediction on this one. I will because I have to. Heretics 1, Aspire 2. Splice 3, Hybrid 4, but I really want to put Hybrid up a little bit higher. Honestly, anything can happen in this pool. Don't flame me too hard for that one. That'll conclude things, though, as far as our pool layout and predictions. Again, all 32 teams will get individual videos on them, so if you're wondering more about my thoughts about those 4 teams in Pool H in specific, I will be going into them more in depth with hopefully some player interviews. I've been reaching out to players left and right. Hopefully, they'll get back to me. So far, I've got a handful of confirmations, about 9 confirmed interviews going on so far, with a handful more that are in the works. So hopefully I'll be able to get more of those going for you guys. But of course, pro players sometimes hard to get a hold of, and I'm still kind of a nobody to them. So we'll see how things go. Thanks for tuning in. I want to know your thoughts. Who do you think your pool of death is, and who do you think is going to be getting out of each pool? Get down to the comments below. Let me know. Hopefully you stay tuned for all the videos popping up. Until next time, though, hope you guys all keep holding it down. Later. Bye-bye.